Hey everybody, this is Brian back with another episode of Grief to Growth. And today I've got with me Sarina Baptista. She's an award-winning author. She's an international speaker, a spiritual teacher, and she's an evidential psychic medium. Her latest book is called My View from Heaven. It's a 2019 COVR Visionary Awards bronze recipient in the iconic book category, and the 2021 Speak Up Talk Radio Firebird Book Award winner in 3 categories. So it's a highly acclaimed book. She's a speaker feature for the Life, Death, and Beyond International Conference in Crete, Greece, and she teaches classes, and she's a visiting medium at Lilydale, New York during their summer program. She's a presenter at IANDS Conferences. She and I have been on a panel together, and she's created many training programs, including spiritual mentoring, long-distance training, workshops, and retreats. She discovered her gifts through her own tragedy, the passing of her 7-year-old son, JT, in March of 2007. And she learned that her son didn't really die, that he was still very close, and that led her to incredible gifts. So Sarina says it's her mission to help you find purpose and connection to your highest divine self, to create the bridge for conversations with loved ones who have passed, and to mentor psychics, and it's also to mentor psychics and mediums to be master messengers. So with that, I want to welcome to Grief to Growth, Sarina Baptista.
Hello. Thank you so much, Brian. It is so wonderful to be here on your program. You and I have a similar history in how we found ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about JT. And first of all, tell me about JT.
Oh my gosh. He's, he was such a beautiful, beautiful soul here. And he obviously is a beautiful soul where he is now. He left at 7, and what a young age. It was not, of course, anything, as you know, not anything that any parent ever expects to experience, and just sent our whole family into this pit, into a pit of grief. And we just didn't really know who we were anymore. But throughout the entire process, I could feel him. I knew he was close. I didn't even know what that meant, though. And I kept looking for him. I kept saying, "Where are you? I know you're out there somewhere. Where are you?" And he would drop these little breadcrumbs for me to search for him and to find him. It was really ingenious what he was doing. And, we think of them as, I thought of him as a little 7-year-old, but he really wasn't at that point. He was this master soul, is a master soul. And his purpose was to guide me to who I am, which is a psychic medium, and I'm here to help others. He's now my master guide and is just an incredible, incredible force. He comes to all of my students, and if you do read the book, My View from Heaven, that was written by him. And if you do read that, then he will also visit you as well if you are open to that, which I think is so cool. And I get stories all the time about, I was reading your book, and JT was right there, and he showed me he was there by doing this, that, and the other. So he's definitely a force on the other side for sure.
So if you don't mind, tell me how he passed at 7 years old. That's
I know. Yes. Both. Yes. He and my daughter, who was 5 at the time, they both caught the flu. And I had no idea that his was going to be deadly. I didn't have any idea. You think, oh, kids get the flu, right? And his sister actually had a very high fever. She was throwing up. I was more concerned about her. He was just uncomfortable. He was very uncomfortable. And so I would monitor him, monitor her. But then what happened on that Thursday evening before he passed, I got food poisoning because I was thinking about taking him to the hospital. He just wasn't getting better. And I was thinking about it, and I got food poisoning, and I was laid out. I had a fever. I was convulsing. I mean, it was one of those things that the universe really made sure that I did not go anywhere. And all of that broke at about 11 p.m. on that Thursday night. And so I immediately went in, checked on my daughter. She was sleeping. JT was restless. He wasn't sleeping. So I just hung out with him. And we even went for a car ride at 2 a.m. just to try to calm him down, chill him out. Nothing was really working. He was very restless. And it was about 3 a.m. when we were both in his room, and he said to me. I was laying in the bed next to him because his brother and he shared a room, but his brother was downstairs. I didn't want him to get exposed to any of this.
Hmm.
And he said to me, "Go to your room, Mom." And I said, "Oh, you want to come to the big bed? Let's see if we can get you comfortable." He says, "No, you go. I want to watch TV." He knew I couldn't sleep when the TV was on, and that was definitely the cue from somebody. Somebody gave him that to get me out of the room. Otherwise, I never would have left. That was my baby. He was, well, he was my firstborn, but definitely a mama's boy. And he would never have sent me out of the room. He wanted me to be close to him all the time. So after having food poisoning all day, and being very, very tired, I said, "Okay, I'm going to go. I'll go to my room. I'll check on you in just a little bit." I went to my room and went to sleep for just 2 hours. That was it. Just 2 hours. I woke up and I was walking across my room, and I just had this thought: what if I go in there and he's not alive? Now, where does this come from? Because up until this point, this is just a standard flu. We just have to get him through it. He's just uncomfortable. The flu doesn't kill kids, right? He's a
Right.
strong kid. And so the thought just of that startled me, shocked me. And I said, "No, I'm not going there." I went to his doorway, and he was very peaceful, but he was also hanging partially off the bed. And I thought, well, that's odd. And then I saw his chest wasn't moving. And at that point, I realized that what I had thought before was probably what had happened. So screamed for my husband. He came up. JT was a big boy for being 7. He was a pretty big kid. So my husband got him on the ground. I started CPR, and my husband called 911. And as I was doing CPR, I could sense that JT wasn't there anymore. And again, I had no idea how I knew this, but I continued until the police came. They took over doing the CPR. Then EMS came, the fire trucks came, and this was all at 6 in the morning.
Right.
And so they worked on him for 45 minutes here and tried to get him back. And then they took him to the hospital and worked on him for another hour, trying to get him back. And at that point, obviously, he had decided not to come back. As much as I pleaded and screamed at him, driving to the hospital, I screamed to get back and come back to me. And I was sure that he would do that. I mean, this doesn't happen, right? This doesn't
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
We were in this alternate reality where this happened. You just never think in your wildest dreams that this would happen. But it did. Yes.
I it sounds almost exactly like our story.
Wow.
Yeah, with Shane, well, it wasn't flu. She just didn't wake up one morning.
Oh
But
my
I,
gosh.
I went for a walk that morning, and I came back, and I was in my office working, and my wife had been trying to reach her by text because Shayna was supposed to work. We have a business in the home, and Shayna was supposed to come down to work, and it was getting pretty late. And Twana thought she's just sleeping in, and we went in, and she wasn't responding. So I know that feeling,
Oh my
CPR,
gosh. Hmm.
yelling at the top of my lungs, thinking maybe somehow she'd
Yes.
hear me and come back,
Yes.
going to the hospital. And for me, just like not accepting the fact that she wasn't coming back. It's like,
Yeah.
even though I should have known intellectually, because she hadn't been breathing for, at that point, nobody knows how long, but they worked on her for quite a while. So as you're telling that, for parents who have gone through this, you understand what we're talking about. It's just, it's like surreal.
It is surreal, absolutely surreal. And I even asked the officer because the ambulance left with JT. I didn't even know it. I wasn't even dressed yet. So I went up, threw on some clothes, and came back down. And I said, "What are his chances?" And he hemmed and hawed. He knew,
They
but
know.
he didn't want to say it. So he said, "Well, he was still a little warm. And so I held on to that. Yeah. And while they were working on him, I'm in my bedroom, I'm screaming at him. And I don't know if they if they hear that, I thought that they would think that I was nuts screaming at my child to get back into his body. But that's what I was doing. At the time, again, I wasn't a medium. Well, I surely was, but I didn't know I was a medium, didn't
Right.
know I was psychic. I just was trying to pull out all the stops and get that kid back. And he had other plans, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what were your beliefs at that time in terms of you weren't a medium yet? So, what were your beliefs about what happens when we pass?
I did believe that we had something after this. There was enough evidence. I had enough experiences in my life. My stepbrother passed when I was 17 and came to me in dreams and visions and all of that. And so I knew that there was something after. And I knew it was beautiful. I didn't know what the extent was. I didn't know how they got there or anything like that. But you know as well as I do, and other people who are listening who have lost children, once that happens, everything that you believed, everything that you thought was real and true is demolished. It is leveled, and you have to rebuild that. And that's what I found myself doing. Well, what are my beliefs? Where is my son? How do I get back to him? How do I find him? And again, I knew that he was there. I could just sense that, but I didn't know how to find him. And again, thanks to his tenacity, he was very determined in getting me the books that I needed to read and the people who I needed to know and be introduced to, and all of that. It was a boom, boom, boom process. And before I knew it, I had found him. I'd found
So,
him.
so he brought books and people and things into your life.
Yes.
That happened first, or did the mediumship happen first?
No, that happened first. I don't know
Okay.
if I would have found the mediumship without that. The
Hmm.
one book that really, really opened my eyes was Journey of Souls
Hmm.
by Michael Newton, PhD. And I was reading that and decided that I needed to have one of those life between life regressions and to see, because everybody, I had intuitive friends, again, I didn't think I was intuitive. Intuitive friends say, oh, he's got big plans for you. You agreed to this. And I really wanted to slap them. I don't know if
Right.
people told you that, but I wanted to slap them because I'm like, what do you mean I agreed to this? I agreed to have my son die from the flu? What was I thinking if that was the case?
Mhm.
So he brought Journey of Souls to me, and I read that and I said, I have to have one of these life between life regressions. And so I contacted the LBL person that was in my area in Colorado at the time. And on the phone message, they said, well, there's a 6-month wait and, all of that. And I thought, oh gosh, well, I'm just going to go ahead and leave my number anyway, because I have to get this done. Within 2 minutes, they had called me back and said they had a cancellation for the following week and did I want it?
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I'm saying, oh, yeah, yes, yes, yes. I have to find these answers. I have to figure this out.
Mhm.
And so I did. I went to the Life Between Lives regression, and it was an off the wall, off the charts experience. I found him again. I did see that I agreed to it. In fact, he showed me this vision of us, the soul family, sitting around a table, and me saying, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do
Yeah.
it." I heard myself saying that,
Was it
knowing
your
that it
idea or
was
his idea? I just have to ask.
it was his idea.
Okay.
I was
I
just
think it was
agreeing
Shayna's
to
idea.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was agreeing that yes, this is a great idea. Let's do this. And once I saw that in that life between lives regression, I thought, okay, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand contracts at the time or anything like that. But I learned. I learned very quickly from that moment forward,
Mhm.
and I did more research. And I'm an engineer by previous life. I was a software engineer. And so I have that mindset of research and analyze and all of that. So I went
Mhm.
there in order to find the intuitive and open myself up. But that was really the beginning, was that life between lives regression.
So then what was your first experience with mediumship?
So then after that, I was led to have a mediumship reading by someone. It was a phone reading. I'd never met this person. They were in California. I was in Colorado.
Mhm.
I was through a friend. I never recommend, opening up the yellow pages and doing the psychics are us. I wanted to understand that it was someone who they had previous experience with them. I was very skeptical. I really was.
Mm.
And so I had this session, and the first thing, she didn't even say anything about JT. She said, "I have your guides here, and they say you have a contract, that you're doing a contract." And I said, "Well, I'm not really." She says, "You're not signing for a house or anything like that." And I said, "No." And she said, "Oh, this is your contract." I had no idea what she was talking about. She says, "It has very thick ink on it." And then she said, "Did you know you're a medium?
Mm.
You're just like me. You are the bridge between this world and the next." And I said, "I had no idea. What do you do? Do you just wake up and you can start talking to dead people? I mean, how does that work?" And she says, "Training, training, training."
Mm.
And so we talked for a bit. I did get into training right away, and my abilities flew in. It was so fast. I didn't even know what I was doing. It was one of those situations where kids started coming to me from the other side to get messages to their parents. I didn't know about boundaries. I couldn't even hear clearly yet. And clairaudience is one of my dominant clairs. And
Mm.
I really hadn't expanded that yet. And so I was just flying blind. But I did it, and I continued to do it and to get those messages. Edit.
Yeah, that's so did you just you started taking training and then you opened up, or when she told
Yes.
you were a medium, then that's when you opened up?
Well, that's a very good question. I do feel that once she told me I was a medium, I was open to it,
Mm. Hmm.
but it really wasn't until I went into the training that I could experience it. Because we all have the clairs, we all have hearing, feeling, seeing, and knowing. And mine at the time was feeling. I could feel everything. And I could feel JT around, but there wasn't that communication, there wasn't that connection. And so it wasn't until I got into training where I trained my other clairs to hear mainly, and and then that's when things really opened up and I could start hearing from the other side. And that's one thing that the medium said in that very first session that we had together. She said, "Oh, your guides tell me you can hear them." I started laughing. I said, "I can't hear them. What do you mean I can hear them?" And
Hmm.
at that moment, in a strong male voice in my head, I heard, "Yes, you can hear us." And it was a little freaky at the time because I had just discovered who I was. But at that point, I said, "Okay, I guess I can hear."
Hmm.
And that became, again, my dominant clair, but I had to train it. I did not just it didn't just open. I needed to open it. And that's probably because, as a child, we have to block those things. I feel we all come in with our abilities, but we have to block them because of parental things and societal things and all of
Hmm.
that. So it took me a little bit of time to pry that open. But once it opened and once that switch was flipped, it was so clear. I could hear JT and I could hear others just like they were in front of me or beside me.
So have you identified guides besides JT?
Oh, yes, definitely. And the team that I have, it changes, definitely depending upon what I need at the time. And so now I just say, okay, whatever God can help me in this moment, please come and help me. And they're right there and they talk with me. I've had different teams come in and out during my training, during my learning. And now I have teams that come in for how I train others, because I do the mediumship training and also a lot of other training, Akashic records and things like that. And that's all done by them. I never say that that I am the one doing it. I say I'm the facilitator and they are the ones, the master teachers on the other side. They're the ones that are actually doing the teaching and the training. So it's a wonderful wonderful connection, wonderful process that they have that they use with me, and I just love it.
So, at what point did you get the idea for the book? Did that come from JT?
That came from JT. I
Okay.
had written 2 books prior to that, and right after that second one was published, JT said, "Okay, now it's my turn. Now it's my book. I want a book. I want you to write a book."
Hmm.
And I thought, well, I just got this one out. Can we just take a moment? Can we just take a step back for a second? And he said, "Nope, I've got to get this out." And I said,
Hmm.
"Okay, how is this going to look? You say you're going to write this. How does that look?" He says, "Well, you know how to talk to me. You know how to channel that information." And so what I would do is I would have a microphone set up, Word document up, the voice to text set up on the computer. And then I would just speak, I would meditate, and I would say, "Okay, JT, what do you want to talk about?" And I would just speak it into the microphone, and obviously, and then it would go on to the Word document. I'd have to go back in and make some edits, of course, and say, "Okay, JT, did you really mean to say this?" And the concepts that he was talking about, they were pretty wild. I mean, they were things that you don't ordinarily hear about in mainstream books and things like that. You do hear about them in, spirituality books
Hmm.
and all of that, the mind, body, spirit stuff. But at the time, I mean, this was, a while back now, and at the time, it was very new information to me. So he would give me something, I would speak it onto the paper, and then I would say, "You know what, bud, I got to take a break here. I need to let this assimilate because this is really blowing my mind." And so I'd have to stop, go like out in the garden or something along those lines, and get my feet in, grounded onto the grass, and I say, "Okay, what does this all mean? What does this mean?" Again, some of these things about, where he is and how we come here and where we come from originally and all of that, it just, yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Now I understand it, after all these years. It now I understand it, and a lot of people are saying the same things as he said back then. So yeah, I get it.
So tell me about some of the concepts that surprised you as JT was telling them to you.
Well, part of it, the whole bit about where we are from, that we're not really from here,
Mhm.
that we're from elsewhere, and we come here to help the earth, to assist in, raising frequency and getting people back to who they truly are. And instead of just the physicalness of people, really bringing back that spiritual peace for people. And it seems like a simple thing, right? That well, sure, we had to originate somewhere, but it really did take me a bit to understand. I did believe in, again, past lives and that in between state, but I didn't have a concept of what came before that. And so he assisted me in understanding that, that we do come from other places, and that we've all come together here now in a very special time,
Mm.
to assist the planet and to, again, get people to understand that they are so much more than just their incarnations. That one was a big one.
Now, the question that a lot of us have, especially when we lose children young, is like, what are they doing? What's it like for them? And my daughter was 15, so she was teenager. She's that in between time. She's not quite an adult. She's still not quite a child, but a 7-year-old still a child. So
Yes.
I'm sure you were concerned, like, where is he? Who's taking care of him?
Yes. Yes. Well, the crazy things that go through your mind. I was in Colorado at the time and we had buried him and it snowed and I was concerned he was cold.
Mm,
Those crazy things that parents think of.
sure.
And I know I'm not the only one
No, you're
in
not. No.
that. And I had to shake myself out of that going, no, he's okay. He's okay. He's not cold. And yeah, trying to find him again or trying to understand, yeah, what he's doing and all of that. He had some great stories, though. Once I did connect with him and could hear him, we could have a conversation. I would say, "What are you doing now?" And he would show me in his hands this ball of fire. And he says, "I'm creating."
Mm,
And I would say, "What do you mean you're creating? How are you doing this?" And he says, "We can do this. Whatever we think of becomes reality. It's just you think of it and it exists. And so I am creating now, and I've got this ball of fire that I'm creating from." And that again kind of blew me away because you think of the standard thing, when my dad left and all of that. Oh, he's in heaven. He's in this very special place and he's doing the same things that he was doing here.
mhm,
And I do believe that for a time period, we do have that. We have that ability to stay in that frequency and to create, like my dad did. My dad created a house for himself, and he was very attached to physical. He was, and he left very young. He was only 56 when he left, and he
mhm,
really felt cheated that he had to leave so early. So he did stay in that frequency of where you're like you create your own earth-like things.
mhm,
And after JT left, and I did get connection with both of them, JT lived with him for a bit. And so they would come together, and
mm,
it would be both JT and my dad. And then one day, JT came without my father, and I said, "Where's Grandpa?" And he says, "Oh, I don't live with him anymore." And I said, "Well, why not?" He says, "I don't need that anymore."
mm,
And so, but my dad did. His grandfather did need that. Now, since then, that was obviously years ago. Since then, my father has raised his frequency and not required that now. But he did for a very, very long time. He required that idea of the physicalness. But we can do that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept, Serena, that I like to talk about because there's confusion about what's like in the afterlife. Some people say it's kind of Earth-like and we can do the things that we do here. Other people say, well, we immediately become these balls of energy and we merge into the one. So I kind of hear you saying it sounds like your father was in that physical state for a while, as long as he wanted it or needed it, and then maybe
Yes.
evolved to something else.
Yes, exactly. And that's how JT explains it to me, is that everybody is okay. Everybody can be where they're at. There's no rush to go through these transitions, no rush to get to that higher frequency. A lot of people like JT, very high energy, master soul. He did spend some time with my dad. I think it was more for me, honestly. I
Mhm,
don't think he needed to be there. I think that he did that so I could warm up to the idea of these layers. And
mhm,
that's how he explains it to me, these different layers. And he talks about that in the book, these different layers of consciousness.
mhm,
And that one was a really interesting concept for me too. Very interesting to try and figure that out, to try and figure out the different, what does that mean, different layers of consciousness for someone. But my dad, again, was a perfect example that he needed to be in that earth-like frequency, stayed there. He was what they call crossed over. There are those, of course, who choose to stay in our frequency and not kind of cross over into the higher frequencies. He had, but was still wanting that house, was wanting the physical pleasures of the earth, that he
mhm.
didn't have anymore. Whereas JT was like, "Yeah, I'm done with that. I just did that for you, Mom."
Yeah, well, that's it brings up a concept that we hear about the astral plane, and I kind of think of that
Yes,
as the astral plane, and I know people say that's kind of a reflection of Earth. The Earth is a reflection of that, however you want to view it.
right,
And again, I don't think there's any judgment for people that say I do
right.
like physical stuff, right? I enjoy. I want to have a nice house or a car, maybe things that we
Yes.
missed when we were in our earthly incarnation.
Exactly. Right. And that's exactly where my dad was. Again, he was very touched to physical when he was here and leaving so early, 56. He had just retired. It was really, and he had a very uncomfortable passing too. It
Hmm.
was liver cancer and it was very uncomfortable. So I can totally understand why he would want to stay in that frequency. But again, he is now higher frequency with JT, moving on up that. I don't really want to call it a ladder, but because there's not really a hierarchy, but it's an intenseness of energy is how I look at it.
I'm excited to announce I have a great new resource. It's called GEMS, 4 steps to move from grief to joy. And what it is, it's 4 things that I've found that I do on a daily basis to help me to navigate my grief. And I'm offering it to you free of charge. It's a free download. Just go to my website, www.grieftogrowth.com/gems, GEMS, and grab it there for free. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I also kind of push back against the layers as if one is better than the other or higher than the other. I think they're different. I think
Yes.
people, and again, I think it's what we want and we feel comfortable with. Um,
Yes.
One concern again that parents have, especially when a child passes, is were they scared? Did they suffer? Were they alone? What impressions do you have of that from JT and from other children that have come to you?
First, they're never alone, ever, ever, ever. They are always accompanied by someone. For JT, it was actually this energy named Hope. And I had no idea at the time that he was a twin. Um, and I would say, I don't want to say a physical twin, I want to say an energetic twin. They
Mm,
were both in the womb, but she never materialized. He did, but he knew he was coming in and not sticking around and needed kind of a little bit more assistance in acclimating.
mm,
And so she stayed with him in the womb for a good amount of time and then left. And he tells me that it was her that came to him the night before he was leaving
mm,
to get me out of the room and to say it's okay. We're going to take care of this. You're going to, this is what's happening, but you know how to do this. And I'm sure this was all on a subconscious level. It was so interesting, though, that week prior to him getting sick, he got sick on a Monday and then passed on Friday. Prior to that, though, like maybe the 2 weeks prior, he suddenly grew up. He became serious
mm,
for the 7-year-old,
mm.
and he became serious. And I thought, this is odd. This is odd for him to be so serious. And I really do feel they were prepping him
Yeah.
as time was going on. And I even about a week before he left, I had a dream about a death, but I thought it was mine. I
Mm,
thought that I was the one that was going to leave. And I immediately said, "Oh, heck no, this is not going to happen. I've got these 3 little babies who need me."
right.
But I had no idea that they were prepping me in that dream for him leaving too. So they're never alone. Absolutely not. Are they afraid? Usually not, because again, someone like JT, 7 years old, who knows he knows he's going to be transitioning, because he's not alone and because of the immense feelings of love and comfort and all of that from the universe supporting that energy, no matter how old they are, but especially the kids, then he was not scared. He didn't want to leave me. That was the big thing that he said. I did not want to leave you, but I had to go.
Yeah, you made the comment earlier. You said that when you were calling out for him, he had decided that he wasn't coming back. So, again, a question I get from a lot of parents is, was it their decision to go? Because we hear some near-death experiencers say that I had a choice, and then parents will sometimes be upset and they will say, "Well, my daughter would
Right.
have never chosen to leave. She wouldn't leave me," which we don't know that, because I think my daughter would have left me because she liked having a good time. I think if someone showed Shane a good time, she'd be like, "Okay, I'm going."
I'm gonna go. Yes, well, it was very interesting. Just a few days after he left, I was sitting at my desk and I was pondering why.
Mm,
Why did this happen? I knew that there was a reason. Because again, my daughter was also ill. She had a higher fever, but she was fine at that point. She
mm,
recovered, she bounced back, she was fine. And so I thought, I know somebody knows. I know somebody knows why. And I looked down at my desk and there was a phone number list. And I had printed out friends and family because we had a whole bunch of people descend on the house. And I just turned the list over to somebody. There was no way I was going to call these people and tell them that my son had just died.
right,
I just couldn't
right,
do it.
yeah,
There were very few people that I could do that with. And so there was a list printed out, and I said, somebody on this list knows. And I ran my finger down. Again, I had no idea why I would even think of this. I ran my finger down and I stopped on a number and I said, she knows. And it was the mother of a friend of mine, the friend's in California, mom's in California. I had only met her maybe once or twice. I think she met JT once. That was it. So it wasn't somebody I was super close to. But I called the number. Her husband answered and I said, it's Sarina. He said, hold on. He knew exactly that I was calling for his wife. She gets on the phone and I said, I didn't even say hello. I just said, why? And she said, well, go get a paper and pen because JT visited me last night and he has a message for you.
mm,
And that, I get chills when I think about it now, that was huge. So I did. I got a piece of paper, got a pen, and the things that he said were that again that he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave me. He tried twice before to go. He couldn't go those times, but this time he had to go.
mm,
And at the time, I didn't understand it. There were a couple other messages about, how he loves me and that I did everything perfectly, which I needed to hear because not getting him to the hospital was gnawing at me, that guilt. If I had gotten him to the hospital, would he still be here?
sure,
And he tells me, of course, now no, because it was done. And he wanted to leave from the house, he didn't want to leave in the hospital. Not to say that other kids, certainly don't want to say that if you do take your child to the hospital, that's a bad thing.
right,
No way. It's just this is how he chose to go. And I mean, it was a choice, that whole food poisoning. So I couldn't get him there and I was exhausted and all of that. That was all a plan because he did not want to go. But what he said, when he said, this was the third time and I had to go, I asked him later because at the time, of course, it was just a few days after he had left, didn't know I was a medium. And so finally, when I did get connection with him, I said, what did you mean by this? What did you
mm,
mean by this was that you had tried twice before and this was your last time and you had to go? They said, well, I had 3 exits. I chose not to go on those other 2, but that was my final exit. And so at 7 years old, that was his final exit. For
mm.
each of us, it's different, right? For our kids, the kids that leave early, that you can assume that it was an exit or a final exit because nobody leaves unless it's their exit.
Yeah, that as you were saying that, it reminded me of Shayna. She had a heart condition known as Wolff Parkinson's White, which is
Oh, wow.
not a really serious condition for most people. Most people live with it for a very long time, and she had actually a very mild form of it, and had a couple surgeries, and they said it was fine, it was going to be okay. But when she
Wow.
first told us about it, she talked about having an experience where everything turned gray and started swimming and stuff. And, I wonder now if that was, maybe one of her exit points that she decided not to go on.
Right.
That was a couple of years probably before when she did finally leave.
Wow.
But there's a lot of important things about what you said. We think of exit points and we think they're all later in life, but for some of us, they are earlier.
Right.
And a lot of parents have guilt around their child's passing, and it doesn't matter how they passed. I've
Right.
talked to enough parents. It can be cancer, it can be
Yes.
suicide, it can be a
Yep.
drug overdose, it can be an accident. Somehow, as
Yes.
parents, we always find a way to take responsibility.
Of course.
So
It is our
under
fault. I'm just
right,
kidding. It's not our fault, but that's certainly where we go with this.
right. But that understanding that they have their own life plan. I mean, as parents, we
Yes.
feel, and we know we're not supposed to feel like we own our children, but we do. We feel like we're responsible for they're
Responsible.
ours. They belong to
Protect.
us.
Exactly.
And we forget sometimes they have their own soul plans, and
Yes.
they have their own exit points, and they have their own things that they're here to learn, and their own things that they're here to teach.
Yes. And one thing that I did learn in all of the people with whom I speak now who are on the other side, of course, I talk to a lot of kids because that's where my foundation is to
Mhm.
help parents, right? And those kids, all of them, not one single one said, "Oh yeah, this could have been prevented." Not one single one said that. They all said, "No, it was my time. It was my time to go." Even the suicides, like you say, those who take their own life, there still is a plan. There's still a plan, whether or not they would have left then or a week from then, right? There's still the exit because we also know of all of those, what we call failed suicides, where they weren't successful. Those are truly the times where they were not supposed to go and they were supposed to stay here, very, very clearly. So those who do leave by that method, that's their time too. And I know that's a really tough concept, especially for parents, and they're holding on to it, or they're blaming, they might be blaming somebody else for it, like overdoses, things like that, blaming the dealers or blaming the friends who provided the drugs.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I know that it's not a cop out at all, but honestly, from all of those kids and JT and the higher souls that I talked to, there was always that plan in place. Now, it doesn't mean that we all leave by, that we say, "Oh, I'm going to die by getting hit by a bus." There are some leeway there. There's some options there. So even if they say, "I'm going to leave by illness this time around," they can come into this incarnation and change it up if they want, with their higher selves, with their
Mhm.
higher souls, and shift it a little bit. But the time frames are going to be the same.
I thank you for saying that, because even though my child didn't pass by suicide, it's one of my passions that there's so much guilt and there's so much shame around suicide
Yes.
for the person took their own life and for the family left behind. And I've even heard some mediums say, "Well, everything is planned in life except suicides. Suicides are never planned." And just carving that exception because it's got such a stigma. And I know we don't want to encourage anyone to take their life, and I understand
Right.
that the mentality, but I just want to help the parents that are saying, "Well, why is my kid the exception? Why did they have to be the one that wasn't planned? Or that means I could have prevented it." And no, there's nothing else you could have done.
No, and I think my sense of what they mean by suicides aren't planned is that maybe they were supposed to be taken out by a pharmaceutical overdose or something like
Right.
that. But instead, they choose to leave a little bit earlier. And I don't mean a lot earlier because again, if they're supposed to stay, they're going to be staying
Right.
regardless. So maybe it's that, maybe the suicide piece, it isn't planned, but it's certainly not uh it doesn't change the timeline.
Yeah.
They would have gone.
I think we focus too much on the way someone died. I
Right.
really hesitate to ask you about how JT crossed over, because for me, it doesn't matter. But I know a lot of people listening, it does
Right.
matter. And people ask me about Shayna and what happened with her and all that. But it doesn't matter.
Right.
We all come in, we all go out. How we go, and I think on the other side, they're not going, "Oh, I'm a suicide. I'm a drug overdose. I got hit by a bus." It's like,
No,
how
they're
did you wake up
not.
from a dream? Does it matter?
Right. And then what a great analogy. How did you wake up from a dream? Because that's really what's happening. This is just a small little blip in our, in the energy of who we are. And it is like a dream and we wake up and then, we're in a different frame of energy. So that was a great a great analogy that you had there. And yes, I understand totally that society really does put this um the stigma on, on parents whose kids leave by their own hand and for the kids who leave by their own hand. I have talked to so many, so many. They're all okay.
Right.
They're all okay. Yes, they had a little bit more of a life
Mhm.
review.
Mhm. Mhm.
Going, well, we could have done that a little differently, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but that's really the essence of it. Once we leave our energy form of the body, then we remember who we are. We go back into that energetic space and we don't judge ourselves
Yeah.
and we don't judge each other.
Yeah, I think I just want to. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's something I want to say about that because there's something in between saying, "Oh, it's okay to just take your own life if you get tired of being here," and judging people like you did a really bad thing. And I like what I heard someone say, and I know it upset some people, but they said there was a teenager, and I won't reveal any names or anything, but he had taken his own life, and when he got to the other side, he went to like a boot camp. So it was
Hmm.
kind of like, okay, there's going to be, like you said, a little extra review here. We're going to give you a little extra
Right.
love. It's not like everything is just like, okay, this was really cool that you did that, but
Right.
it's like let's think about maybe we don't want to do that next time.
The other thing that I hear from those who did take their lives is that most of them are now helping people here who are contemplating that. And
Hmm.
they're trying to help shift them from that, not because of the way that's the terrible way to go. I mean, it is for us, but it's because of the parents, because of the family, because of the added energy that is around it because of the way that somebody chooses to go.
Hmm.
So many of those who do take their own lives are really trying to help others in to make different choices and to allow whatever it is that was in their contract to kind of flow through instead of leaving that in that manner. Again, not a judgment by any means,
Right.
but certainly it's really hard on those of us who are left here when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's okay to acknowledge that because it is. So I want to talk about your training that you do for people. You help train people in mediumship. So tell me about that.
Yes, and that was a shock to me to be training people. It was about only a year after I began training, and I had a teaching team, the master souls on the other side, who were helping me with my own abilities. And they came into one of my meditations and they said, okay, now it's time to start training others. And I started, I said, what are you guys talking about? Because I am nowhere near being able to train anybody. I'm still learning this myself. I don't have a grasp on this. And they say, oh, you misunderstand, Sarina. You will not be doing the training. We will. We're going to be doing the training. You are going to just be facilitating. And that's why I said I call myself a facilitator. They're doing the training. And so I began one-on-one training first and just working with people, a mentorship program for anyone who had an inkling that they wanted to connect. And especially for those parents, I've had, connecting classes for parents to connect with their kids, really anybody who wants to connect with the other side, because I am a firm believer that we can all do this. I always say, I was a software engineer. If I can do this, anybody can do this. If I can learn to shut off those voices in my head that told me I was crazy for doing this and really focus in on my soul and my spirit, then I know that other people can do that too. And so it began as a one-on-one mentorship program, and my team is just phenomenal. It was an individualized program. It still is. It's an individualized program where it focuses on the person's their clairs. What is their dominant clair? And we
Mhm.
work on it. We give exercises. We expand it. We really dive deep into it to hone that gift, to hone it, and which is amazing and I think very unique. And then that kind of morphed into people wanting to become mediums, because in the beginning it was just about connecting,
Mhm.
just about getting you connected to your loved ones. But then there's people who want to be psychic mediums, and so I developed a certification program. Okay, I'm being corrected. I didn't develop it. My master teachers developed a psychic mediumship certification program.
Mhm.
And so then they go through an entire year of training with me and with the master teachers, and with a curriculum. And it's really, again, a solid system. We've been doing that for maybe 6 or 7 years,
Mhm.
and that now morphed into an advanced psychic mediumship certification program for those who want to take it to the next level. And then the other thing that was introduced to me, which really, really changed my world, was the Akashic Records. And so JT taught me how to access the Akashic Records and how to teach others to access it, which was in a much more simplified form, because when I was reading books and things like that, it felt very complicated. I'm a very simple person. I want the easiest way to do something, simplest way, not easiest, simplest way. And
Mhm.
so he instructed me on that. And so now we have Akashic Records facilitator programs and teacher programs too.
So tell me what the Akashic records are to you, because everybody has a little bit different
I know,
understanding.
right? Yeah, and I find that interesting because it should be just a general thing, right? So for me, the Akashic records are the records of all my lives, here and elsewhere. There's Akashic records for me on other planets and things like that. And what we can do with that is we can look at patterns. What are the patterns that we brought into this incarnation? What did our souls say we wanted to work on again? What are the things that we continue to work on over and over and over again, where we aren't really getting it or we're not really understanding it? There's blocks in our ways or whatever. And
Mhm.
so we look at that. We look at the Akashic records. We go to the record keepers, who are these beautiful, beautiful energies, and they're part of our council. And the council is that body of energy that helped us pick this incarnation. So they know what our contracts are, what our plan is, what we really want to get done here. And so we go to that body of energy and we say, okay, why did this happen this way? Why is this happening this way? Why does this person give up their power to everybody and not have power of their own? Or why does this person constantly choose a person to be in their life that is detrimental to them? And usually, I mean, it is wrapped around childhood and things like that for sure. But a lot of times it's from patterns from other lifetimes as well. And so we take a look at that and we say, okay, what do we need to do here to finish this? What do we
Mhm.
need to do to finish this lesson and to just move on? And the record keepers are just amazing, and the council is amazing, because that's really what we're trying to do here is get that junk done, and so we can learn something new, so we can do something new. Our souls are always looking for the next thing to expand and to develop. So that's my definition of the Akashic records.
Mhm.
And in working with it, for me, it helps me so much to understand what the origin of an issue is, because then I can go, oh, okay, I get it. I get now why I do this. And I say, okay, well, how do I heal this now? How
Yeah.
do I
So it,
heal
it
this and do it?
I get the feeling it's kind of similar to like past lives, only it's actually more general and looking at patterns and recognizing
Yes.
patterns. Yeah.
Yes, recognizing patterns and then figuring out what needs to happen, what needs to
Hmm.
heal so that you can move away from the pattern and really bring into your life the things that you want to have, really start manifesting and being truer to who you are.
Yeah, I actually had something with someone about Akashic Records, and it's coming back to me now that you're mentioning it because she was helping like release, because I guess a lot of times we have old junk contracts
Yes.
left over and bonds, maybe even from other lives that
Yes.
we're not aware of. And so releasing some of that stuff. So you do that as well?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
do. Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating work. And it's fascinating even more to talk with these people after these sessions, after we release it, after and I have so much help in doing that. There's so many energies in the universe that want to assist us. I work with a lot of multidimensional energies, and they are the ones, they make it so easy for us to release these things and to move on. You have to want to. You have to want to release it, want to get it out of this incarnation and the pattern done. But aside from that, it really is a beautiful process. And hearing the feedback from those people that it really made a difference for them, and they didn't feel like they had to continue in the old pattern again.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about guides, and I know I asked you for some questions before we got started. One of the questions was like, how did we contact our guides? But I work with a lot of people who feel like they're alone. It's what the
Wow.
universe has brought to me. I was working with someone earlier today, even who's like, my mother's gone, my father's gone, it seems like all my friends are gone, and I have a lot of those people that I work with. So when people say, and I tell people, you're never alone. You always have a
Right.
guide. How do we reach our guides? How do we get confidence that I actually have them and they're not just imaginary figures?
Guides will show up in so many different ways, especially if we're not able to connect with them. Number sequences is huge.
Mm,
Bumper stickers. I remember
mm,
mine communicating with me in words and bumper stickers and things like that. They'll bring they'll do like well, I wouldn't want to say a takeover, but you hear about those angels in bodies, right?
mhm,
Where they come
mhm.
and they say something to you. And it's something that you really needed to hear that is so important to change your life. And so they will come as that as well. But to really connect with them, it was actually a lot simpler than I thought when I was starting this process. I thought, oh, there's no way I can shut my mind up and focus enough to hear something that I can't see, right? So, so the first thing is meditation, and I know that it's really hard for some people to meditate,
Mhm.
and so what I suggest is a guided meditation and something where your brain has something to do, and that's why I say guided, because as you're doing a guided meditation, your brain is occupied, your mind is occupied listening to the words, following along. And as that's occurring, then your spirit and your soul are able to fly and are able to really get into the energy of that higher frequency. So meditation always raises your frequency. And that's what it's about when you're connecting with anything in that other realm, is getting to higher frequency. So things like grounding and walking in the grass, taking nature walks, doing meditative things like some people love gardening. That is a meditation that raises your frequency. Anything where you can shut your mind off and allow your spirit to take that trip. And so definitely meditation. And then I would also say a willingness and a verbal asking for the help. We live on a planet where we have free will, and I didn't understand that, I mean, I understood the idea of free will, but I
Mhm.
didn't understand that I needed to ask for help.
Yeah.
Why aren't they just helping
It's like,
me?
it's
Why
your
aren't they
job,
just
do it.
here?
Yeah.
Right. You're supposed to be helping me. Why aren't you doing that? And so I learned that we need to ask, we need to set intention around it. And so I have my students say, I'm a clear receiver. I receive clearly from my guides. Only high frequency is allowed to come talk with me right now or communicate with me. Because I feel the other thing that people have a fear around is, what am I connecting to?
Yeah.
Right? What's out there? And so I always say, just say high frequency only, and that takes away all of the other choices.
You,
So
you
asking for that.
you said something there I haven't heard before. Number sequences, bumper stickers, things that we would normally call signs.
Right,
Um,
right.
that could be your guides, is what I heard you say.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. If they need to get us a message and we're not paying attention,
Hmm.
they will do whatever they need to do to get us that message. Dreams, I used to have crazy dreams. And in a particular point in my life where I really needed to make a change and I was being very stubborn about it, I didn't realize I needed to make that change. I would have these dreams of crazy stuff where showing me I needed to change, and I finally got it.
Yeah.
But they'll use that. They'll use whatever they can to help us in moving into different energy.
Well, because I think a lot of times we think about guides, it's like, okay, I expect them to like walk up to me, introduce themselves, and I hear a lot of people, and sometimes we take other people's experience and it sets expectations.
Sure.
My guide is Red Wolf. He's an American Indian. He's 6 feet tall. He has a feather
Wow.
in his hair. I mean, I'm not saying it, people use this
Oh,
I'm using
okay.
it as
That's
an
not yours,
example.
right? Yes,
And then
yes.
people say, well, I don't know my guide
I
like
don't
that.
have that.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't have that. And I've had different experiences. The first guide that I heard about was through a medium. She told me about my guide and she gave me her name and she described her. The second one, I believe, was my guide. I had a dream and it was years ago, but I can still remember it like it was yesterday. And I saw this guy. He was standing in my kitchen and I'm like, there was something about him that really struck me. And so I'm thinking, I think that was maybe one of my guides. And then the
Right.
third one, it was like in meditation. So I think that
Right.
my experience has been, and this has been over the course of years, it didn't all happen in one day. This is a course over like 7 years. I feel like I have an idea of who three of my guides are.
Right. And they do change. They do come in and out. We have a main guide that really sticks with us.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is JT now. And
Mm-hmm.
others, for others, it could be, it's usually not a relative that has passed. JT is a little bit of the exception. I would say kids are the exception too. Kids on the other side, usually, they can come and they can be guides for us because
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
that connection, because they're very high frequency souls. They wouldn't have come and left as a child if they weren't a high frequency soul.
Right.
So they're in a position to help guide us. But others, other times, again, it kind of depends on what you need, what the focus is for your life. We have, purpose guides. We've got joy guides. I've got parking guides. I love my parking guides. And I love that they are there. I ask for help. I say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whoever can help me, please come help me right now. And I don't need to know their name. I used to have to know their name. In the beginning, you're like, okay, who is this? Give me your name. I need to know who you are, where you're from,
Right. Right.
all
Right.
of that. And I gave that up because there were just so many coming in and out. So,
And I think and from what I've understood, that's an expectation that we'd be better served to let go of. And I've heard a lot of
yes,
times the guides will be like, okay, well, if you want to have a name, you can call me, X. We as humans are hung up on names.
yes.
And I'm kind of like, I'm not looking for that, anymore either. And speaking of dreams, I had a really strange dream last night. It was one of those dreams that, they seem to go on forever, and then you
Oh,
think you
wow.
woke up and you're still in it.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
and this being just kept changing form. And I'm like, did you drug me? Because you keep changing.
Oh, my
And I woke up
gosh.
this morning. I literally asked the being, I said, did you drug me? And so I think that might have been one of my guides trying to tell me something.
Right. Yes. Well, and it feels like, that it's a change for you, that
Yeah.
that constantly changing thing is about your energy, and it's about where you are and where you're going,
Yeah.
and wanting you to see more sides of it. But boy, that sounds like a vivid one, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I put that out there for people because when people ask me about signs and synchronicities and all this stuff, a lot of times
Yes.
people like you're an engineer, I'm an engineer. We're like, okay, how is this supposed to work? Let me write this down, and I want this to come in this order or in this way. And the longer I've been doing this work, and the 8 years since Shayna passed, and 4 years doing this formally, I'm realizing be open to anything. Be open to whether it's a
Right.
dream, whether it's a synchronicity, whatever it is, be open to all of it because it's all guided.
Right. And I do feel you have a really, really good point there. I have so many people come into my office who are expecting connection to be a certain way for them. I'm
Mhm.
not getting any signs from my kid or something along those lines. And then I'll talk to the kid and they'll say, I've been giving them signs, I've been talking to them. And so, that's the biggest one, is that the hearing, they hear their child's voice in their head and they blow it off,
Right.
and they
Right.
don't think that it's them. They
Right.
hear mom, mom, and they think they're going crazy. That's their kid. That's the kid saying, "Hey, you can hear me. I'm right here." But for them, they expect, like you said, for them to walk up like in Ghost Whisperer,
Yeah.
where it's this person that you can't tell whether they're an energy or a person. And for me, it doesn't work like that. For me, it's very different. There are mediums out there who it is how they see it.
Mhm.
But I can see the person. It just is, again, an energy. I can see the energy of them. I can see what they look like. But yes, yeah, for parents, the biggest thing is letting go of the ideas or the preconceived information that they might have heard from somebody else. Oh, in my reading, blah, 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 blah. And it just doesn't happen that way for everybody. And so, yes, to be open to how your child or how your loved one is communicating with you is a huge, huge factor in this. We all get signs. There's not one time where I can think of, and I've been doing this for almost 16 years, that somebody on the other side said, "Oh no, I didn't give them any signs. I just moved on."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's their job, is to make sure we're okay. Their job is to help us through the grief and to help us find the joy again and to help us maneuver through, or to find purpose. Like me, my job was to find purpose. JT's job was to help me find that. But for other people, it could be that they need to get back into life. They need to really experience life instead of allowing the loss to consume them. Because I'll tell you, our loved ones don't want us consumed by that grief. Now, we do have to walk through the grief. As you know, there's no way around it. You can't wish it away or drug it away or anything like that. You have to do the process. But I remember early on when I started connecting with parents who'd lost children, and they said, "Oh, it's forever. You're forever in this terrible, terrible place, and you're forever going to feel this way." And I said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way I need to do it. I
Right.
think I can do it a different way. And I don't think that JT wants me to be there and do it that way. So I was very deliberate with my process, very deliberate with my grief, and did a lot of the work. I mean, and it's work, as you know, it's
Yeah.
work,
It's work. Yeah.
but it is required. It's
Mhm.
required. And again, I found who I was, or I found JT just 4 months after he left, and then found who I was 6 months after. So I was still in the throes of grief when I was trying to connect with him and work with him. And that did, I don't want to say it delayed it, but I really had to do my grief process in order to be able to get rid of the block of grief and to
Yeah,
be able
I
to,
I just want to interject there for everybody. It's a different timeline. For
right.
me, I told someone the other day that I started the blog like a week after Shayna passed, and they're like, "Oh, you had clarity a week after Shayna passed." I'm like, "No,
No.
it was about 4 years after Shayna passed before I decided I was going to do this work as like a full-time thing." So, people, I love what you said there. It's like grief is a process, grief is work. We have to walk through it. You can't look at someone like myself or like you,
Right.
who's many years out, and go, "Okay, I'm supposed to be there," and it's been 3 months. It's like,
Right.
no, it takes time to get there. It takes time for a flower to grow.
Yes,
Flowers don't go from a seed to a flower overnight. It takes time to get there.
absolutely.
And we're actually running a little bit short on time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'd like for you to tell people what services you offer, because I know you teach mediumship. Do you still give medium readings? So
Yes.
tell me about all the different services you offer.
Yes, I still offer readings, mediumship, especially because I want people to know their loved ones are okay. And psychic readings, Akashic record readings, all of that. I also do pet mediumship
Hmm.
and pet psychic, pet Akashic records. Our pets have Akashic records too. And so definitely offer all, one-on-one services, usually via Zoom because we are in a Zoom world now, which
Mhm.
is really nice. And then of course, the training that I have is all on my training website as well, which is dragonflypsychiccenter.com. And to get to the readings, if you want a session with me, it's sarinabaptista.com or bridgetohealing.com. Both will take you to that. And all of the information is there. Again, I offer a very wide variety of different things for people because I find that not everybody might want this aspect of it or that aspect of it. So we
Right.
can tailor it and we can do more than just one thing during a session. The guides and your loved ones are so excited when we are able to talk to them, and that really is a huge piece of this. Is they want that connection. Loved ones want the connection. They want to continue the relationship. Yeah, it looks different, as you know, very different than when they were here. And our guides too. We are in a very interesting time on our planet, and many people are finding themselves a little bit lost. And so, connecting with the guides, connecting with who you are and your purpose is a huge aspect of what I do as well.
Absolutely. And I can remind people of the name of your book.
Oh, the book is My View from Heaven,
Yeah.
which was written by JT. And there is another book coming out at the end of August that I have collaborated with three others. Three of us have lost children. One lost her husband, and that one is called Finding Love and Purpose. And so that again kind of takes the message that we were talking about
Mhm.
and talks about our four stories.
Sounds great. Well, all the links will be in the show notes. Serena, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Brian, thank you so much for talking with me today. It has just been such a pleasure. I always look forward to talking with you.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You too.